is supervising the eradication of all these houses on stilts.
I am under directive. The only person that can tell you what is going here is the Commissioner for Waterfront.
The ministry does not know how many people are affected. Local leaders are saying at least 100,000. Officially, the shantytown is being destroyed out of environmental concerns, but everyone knows the real reason. For the authorities, Makoko is an eyesore at the heart of Lagos, damaging the image of Nigeria's economic capital.
And before we go, a reminder of our headlines. Two top diplomats representing Indonesia and Zimbabwe in the Gambia have presented their credentials to the head of state. The Independent Electoral Commission recently held a two-day interface on the program for accelerated growth and employment push. Fierce fighting is raging in Syrian capital Damascus a day after a bomb blast killed 3 members of President Bashar al-Assad's inner circle. And the government of the autonomous region of Zanzibar has declared 3 days of national mourning following the sinking of a ferry off the region's coast. You can follow the day's stories and other GRTS programs live on our website at www.grts.gm. There you can also monitor GRTS Radio Live. That brings us to the end of this edition of the news. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, enjoy the rest of our programs, and Ramadan Mubarak.
The challenges facing the continental body made this trip to Addis a necessity. The stakes were high and the strength of the Union is again tested. The world waited eagerly the outcome of the summit and the issues it left unattended since January. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Sir Professor Olayi Dr. Yaya was there, and he now returns precisely 7 months later to see to it that these issues were resolved. The delegation he led to the 19th ordinary session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union in Addis Ababa is testimony to the importance of the mission. "49 years after it was established, and 10 years since it adopted the name, the African Union, countries it sought to unite are yet to break free from the past. From the turmoil in Mali and Guinea-Bissau in West Africa, to the Sudanese problem, the Congo, Somalia, and the unsettled political problems in the Arab world. True that these are issues right in the open, but the story is not all a negative one.
These regular meetings constitute a strong moment in the life of our organization, and as such always arouse sustained interest at the level of the continent as well as beyond. During the period under consideration, despite the fact that the continental political scene has been rather tarnished by the 2 coups d'etat in Guinea-Bissau and Mali, you will recall that the theme, the central theme of 2012 is boost intra-African trade. This choice, in fact, has emanated from a greater awareness in the fact that trade will be the lever for the well-being of the peoples of Africa. The data speak for themselves. The intra-African trade amounts to 10%, whereas in Europe it is more than 60%. And the model of integration still inspires our efforts. The present meeting is not only an opportunity to sensitize further our states on the need and the urgency for sustained action to correct what we can call an anomaly, but also to consider the measures that we have adopted since January this year in application of the declaration that we have adopted.
From the exterior of the hall, photographs of the founding fathers of the Organization of African Unity are proudly displayed in black and white as a tribute, and from the inside the voices of unity resonate yet more loudly. From the newly elected presidents of Senegal and Egypt to the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Lesotho, the Secretary General of the Arab League, to the representative of the Palestinian Authority. These were voices of meaning, sustained by the vision that led to the creation of this African institution.
The United Nations, the African Union, and African sub-regional organizations share this mission. It is gratifying to see how far we have come by working together ever more vigorously over the years.
The language of the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, representing Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, in one part extended a hand of friendship to Africa, and on the other pledges more support for the continent's development priorities, saying Africa is home to thriving democracies, where elections are peaceful and the press is free. All this positive energy and vitality emanating from the continent, he said, should be recognized and acknowledged, not least when violent conflicts dominate the headlines.
Let me mention a few specific examples. For Somalia, we are seeing the prospect for a peaceful future, thanks in large part to the extraordinary contributions and sacrifices of the African Union, AMISOM, and the troop contributing countries. This vision should extend to cover the Horn of Africa as well. There is still work to be done. The food crisis still persists. New disasters must be avoided. Immediate action must be taken. The United Nations is and will be fully engaged in this work. The UN is committed to work with the AU to help Guinea-Bissau resolve its crisis and ensure an immediate return to constitutional rule. In Mali, the AU, ECOWAS, and the United Nations must also continue working together, as well as with the transitional government and the country's neighbors, to restore territorial integrity and human security. There has been some progress in stabilizing Bamako, but the transitional institutions, as you know, remain fragile. The situation in the north of Mali, where armed militias and terrorist groups continue to control local populations, is alarming and is a threat to the region, and I would say beyond. The destruction of historical sites is shocking and outrageous. Extremist groups and criminal networks are spreading rampant fear and insecurity. Weapons are being trafficked over porous borders.
Even the birds, they know that when there's no peace, nobody survives. And we, the human beings, especially West Africa, is the most volatile region of Africa. Africa has a fair share of, more than a fair share of problems that we encounter, but more so in West Africa. And failure to take the right action at the right time results in what has been happening recently in Mali. We remember when it first, when the coup took place, and we had a summit, and I made it very clear that we had to take them out as soon as possible, and that we don't have to compromise our principles. But some of us are behind the coup, so they delayed, they brought in delaying tactics. Now this situation has escalated to a point where even the AU is asking for a UN backing for forces outside of the African continent to come and tackle a problem that started as a very small, minor problem.